hello, today is the 12th, and I forgot what sections we're doing immediately.
And what month it is.
It's the 12th of February, but of 2020. But do you think people go back and rewatch these very often?
Yeah, every time we talk about that, somebody comments that
and says they do.
They're working their way through them.
A few people have been like, I was dying on my deathbed in the hospital, and your, 2017 content and forward was just what got me through it. It's like, thanks.
Wow.
But
I don't know how to feel about that.
That's an overpopulation issue. Well, business news and a little bit of a sad statement to start off with. That's actually not that unusual, is it? But this one affects all of our favorite hobby. And is it going to die with the coronavirus? Probably not, but it's not good news.
The chip industry had worst sales year since the dot-com bubble burst. But it's also true that this last year was the best year for desktop PC sales. So how can both of those things be true? Memory and basically everything but desktop processors really didn't sell well.
Well, I think it has to do with people slowing down on the phone purchases.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it used to be that everybody had to get a new iPhone every time. And then they just abused it so hard, they disillusioned their entire audience.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
It also turns out that like the $400 Android, like the difference like you'll experience from like the $400 Android and like the $1,000 Galaxy S whatever, the difference is minor.
And I don't know if this is true of most people, but more and more I never use my phone for like even the simplest of games or anything like that. The things
yeah.
Other than video, I don't use anything that taxes the phone's hardware all that much.
I was super tempted by the ROG phone, and it was like, oh, maybe I'll use that. But I was tempted by the ROG phone not for games, but just because of the ridiculous battery and screen.
Yeah. Battery is probably the number one feature.
Yeah.
Well, battery might be the number one feature, but good luck getting it replaced. Remember when we talked about the right to repair battle, and everybody was like, wow, we've won one of those battles, not the war, a skirmish maybe, that we've won because Apple has now said that they're going to do the independent repair program. They're actually going to support these indie shops. Well, now we've had a look at the contract. Boy, is that interesting.
Apple's independent repair program is invasive to shops and their customers, the contract shows. So Motherboard got a copy of the contract that an independent repair shop would have to submit to for Apple. And I gotta say, if this were the automotive industry, Apple would be brought up on like racketeering and RICO and antitrust. And I mean, this stuff literally already happened in America's history with Detroit and the automakers. All the same stuff that Apple's doing now, the automakers already tried 50, 75 years ago. But for some reason, they can get away with it.
So Apple claims that they're terrified of unauthorized parts, counterfeit parts. So how are they going to combat that? Well, number one, your books, you're going to open them up to Apple. You're going to show them every transaction, where you got the parts. You're going to let them look at your parts. Yes, physically.
Look at your parts.
They're going to be coming in and inspecting your parts. And they don't have to schedule that, by the way.
They could demand that you mail them the parts as well, at your expense.
So whatever they want, you have to give it up. But here's the kicker.
Sounds like a pimp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at the part.
Bitch better have authorized parts.
Yeah.
But here's the best part. If you sign this contract, Apple has the ability to audit you, like we say, at any time. They can just come in and just look at everything inside your shop. They can vet your employees. They can look at your history. But for 5 years after you exit the program, they get to keep doing that.
So can you imagine an AutoZone where like Henry Ford could just walk in and terrorize it, like flip some tables and have some goons there? I mean, that would just be crazy.
Now you might be thinking, what are they going to do about it if I do get some unauthorized parts? Well, that's going to be $1,000 per repair. What's the average cost to replace a battery?
Like $30.
So for every $30 battery replacement you do with an unauthorized Apple battery, and that's up for them to decide, it's going to cost you $1,000. Wow.
So what politician needs some sort of fodder to pander with? Because this seems like that would just be like slam dunk.
I got to think that
topic to talk about and go after Apple.
I got to think most of Bernie's base uses iPhones, right?
Yeah. I think Apple might be drinking a little bit too much of their own Kool-Aid if they think that phones, like the electronics and the construction of their phones, really is all that special. The specialness, if there is any Apple specialness, is really more about the software than the hardware. It's a little bit their A13 and up processor, because they have done some really interesting stuff with that. But that's really more about Samsung and some of their electronics partners. But it turns out that a lot of the aftermarket parts would actually be really easy to get if Apple was not crippling the supply chain themselves directly. Because like the companies that make the screens, like the digitizers, have gotten in trouble with Apple for selling it to repair centers. And like culturally in China, they're like, what do you mean we can't sell to other customers? People want to buy your screens and they're selling them for repair of your devices. We're not even selling to a competitor. What could possibly be wrong with that? And Apple's like, every device repaired is a new device not sold. So
false scarcity, the vault.
Yeah, I mean, just.
But you act like that's not the plan.
I mean, it literally is the plan.
Yeah,
but
it's not special.
They do like a little bit of greenwashing on Earth Day, and then they're like, but buy more phones, even if yours is repairable.
The argument you're making is why they're doing it, because they're not special.
The argument that I'm making shows that the repair program is even more insidious than it would appear, because they're not actually earnestly trying to do a repair program. They're trying to be evil.
But did anybody ever think that was the case? Come on.
A lot of people think that's not the case.
There was probably like, some small hope. It's like, oh, they're going to work with all these little independent contractors. No.
No, the truth of the matter is, most of the Apple zombies have no concept of this. And they're not going to find out because they don't care, because they're, self-involved. They're taking selfies. They're not looking at these news articles. And they're out there buying Apple products. Now, while they might not be buying phones at the same rate because they're broke and their credit's at the limit, they are still buying Apple products.
Strategy analytics. Apple Watch outsells the entire Swiss watch industry in 2019.
Wow.
I have noticed a lot of Apple Watches. People have Apple Watches that I never would have pegged to have been even remotely interested in Apple Watches.
One of our coworkers has one.
Yep.
And I'm just here silently judging them.
It's not me. Don't look at me.
I know who it is.
They're on my list.
They're on the whiteboard in my office. And the big news for the nerds this week was a chip that none of them will ever buy. Why are you so interested in it? But it is quite an engineering feat.
AMD Threadripper 3990X review, a 64-core multi-thread beast unleashed. This is from Hot Hardware. They did a nice write-up. I did a video. You should go watch the video, and then maybe you can read the write-up. It's probably fine. 64 cores and a desktop CPU and a 280-watt power envelope. It is a very niche processor. It is not an everyday processor. You're not going to buy it and be using it 10 years from now to the same level that you would be today. For visual effects and stuff like that, it's insane. For certain, but not all, development workloads, it's insane. Like bioinformatics research, if you're an academic, it's insane. But 64 cores in the desktop, there's not a lot of software out there that will take advantage of that.
But it's like when the company that makes your car makes the fastest race car.
Yeah. And
you brag about it as if your car is anywhere. I guess this would be less of a race car, more of like a tractor puller. But still.
The thing that's really surprising here is that the company that's known for tractor pulls, that's 10 times larger than basically the garage band that's just doing tractor pull, they don't have anything that comes even remotely close. Like, this is more than twice as fast for a lot of things as a 2-socket system from Intel. And that's really the surprising thing.
And half the price.
Yeah, I mean, $20,000 for two 28-core CPUs from Intel versus only $4,000 from this one, and it's faster in every measurable way.
No, that's not true. There were some metrics where Intel won.
Like 1%.
So yeah, it's amazing, but it's not going to change your life. Now we're going to get comments. It's like, oh, actually, I'm rendering such and such right now.
I am trying to work with a game studio to do a thing, and that might turn into a video, and we'll see. But again, super niche use case.
Not for gaming. Don't buy it for gaming.
No. It's for the entire company to use to test different builds of their game. So it's not, you don't need this if you're a game developer. You need this maybe if you're leading a team of 12 developers.
Last week we talked about the Motorola Razr, and it had some issues. It got kind of weird. And the company came out and said, hey, listen, it's gonna be weird. Just plan
buy
on that.
it. Just buy it.
It's not a problem. These
Don't
little
think about it.
bumps and stuff that pop up over time, that's not going to compound at all. It's going to be fine.
Just buy it.
Well, CNET, they took their little folder machine that they built for the Galaxy, and they subjected the Razr to it.
Motorola's Razr's hinge broke after 27,000 folds in a durability test. Motorola says it was rated for 100,000, but it died after 27,000.
I think we need to have an average. They need to buy multiple Razrs and then tell us the average number of folds.
I want to see
Because
the
clearly
pictures.
this one was defective, right?
I want to see the pictures.
Oh, it's not visibly broken.
Yeah.
But that video, if you watch it, like at the point where he gets it there, because the machine, it doesn't have a lot of torque. So the machine just like couldn't fold it anymore. It was just like, so he grabbed it and he was like, I wonder what's wrong. It's like, it was just making horrible noises. He was like, well, I can fold it, and it crunched, you know. So it didn't seem like $1,000 investment. Oh yeah, the video. You can watch the video on this Engadget
And
story
listen to it make the horrible noise. Yeah, I was playing with my Surface flap here, and
I was just thinking about that earlier. I was like, he's going to like just wear that out.
Yeah, that's coming off at some point for sure. Well, we talk a lot about, the cloud. And when you buy digital copies of things or subscriptions or software as a service, you don't really own it. It's not really yours. And they can change their mind about it. They can take back your ebooks. They can take back your digital media. They can turn off your software or revoke features out of it. But here's a new one, and a terrifying one.
Tesla remotely disables Autopilot used on Model S after it was sold. So Tesla sold this car listed with Autopilot to a dealership, and then the dealership listed it with Autopilot and sold it to an end user.
But this was a used Tesla.
Yeah. It was
for the poorest.
The first transaction was from Tesla to the dealership, and it was a used dealer, or it was a used car. But it was listed from Tesla with Autopilot.
I think it's, you're leaving out steps. So original owner, this might have been a lease that came back.
Yep.
Had Autopilot.
Yep.
Then Tesla has a resale program to dealerships.
Yep.
Sold it to the dealership with Autopilot, and there was another one too. Was it like the battery extender?
Yeah.
And
the battery's there. It's just software limited.
All right. So on the sticker, when you went to the used lot, it was like, oh, it has this $8,000 feature. That sounds like a value, right? Well, they turned it off.
They turned it off after the fact. They're going to turn it back on, I would say.
I don't know.
Listen, you don't buy used on Tesla, obviously. You spend full price.
Is this like the Apple thing where
Yeah, you don't buy used.
every used car that we sell costs us? Now, he contacted Tesla, and they said, sorry, you're going to have to pay us for those features again. Now, do you think it's $8,000 again, even though the car is used?
Yeah. That's how they do that.
I think you should prorate that.
Although the dealership is going to be on the hook for this, if nothing else, just under the whole like selling a car laws. This kind of thing is super well covered under the selling a car laws, because the listing from the dealer shows that. So,
But it's software.
Yeah.
Do the sell the car laws cover software?
probably.
That's going to be interesting to find out.
Yeah.
Well, SpaceX, they're doing well. They're doing so well that they keep polluting the skies with their filthy Starlinks. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Starlink can do with satellite internet. Man, I'm going to be very upset if Starlink turns out to be this incredible low latency thing, and Krista gets to buy the remote country house
Amazing,
that I
yeah, the
dreamed of.
compound that I've been dreaming of.
Because I wanted that, but I couldn't find internet anywhere. But Musk thinks it's going to be so successful that he's going to put it on the market.
SpaceX will likely IPO its Starlink internet satellite business. SpaceX Starlink subsidiary could soon be more profitable than SpaceX itself. They're on track. They've launched half the satellites they need to get the service off the ground. The next half of the satellites will probably be in orbit sometime in the next 6 months, which means they could be open for business as soon as 6 months from now. So maybe the first customers can sign up. Latency is probably going to be around 25, 30 milliseconds, 35 milliseconds, something like that. So it's like low-grade DSL and not modern fiber. But hey, what can you do?
Now, after what we've seen with the Tesla stock, it's up like, what, 2,000% or something like that since the IPO. Do you jump in on the Starlink?
I think that the Starlink might just spur ISPs into stop being slightly less terrible because
What'll happen is that it will spur them to lobby harder to get Starlink.
outlawed.
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
And then the compound remains a dream.
Yeah.
Or you get the compound, but then they change some kind of law and neuter Starlink, and now you've got the compound.
And I can't get rid of it now, and I don't have internet.
You're going to have to trench your own fiber.
That's not an option. It's not to the pole.
You can. It will cost a lot.
Oh, yeah, you can pay $75,000.
Yeah. Well, if you amortize that over 20 years, it's not completely terrible.
I'm not going to live that long. Google Stadia still seems to be a bit of a non-starter when it comes to disrupting the gaming industry. It just hasn't really played out to be this amazing thing that everybody thought it was going to be. Actually, I don't hear anybody talking about it anymore.
No.
No, it's quietly disappeared.
Kind of came and went. It might turn into God, what was the name of Google's social media experiment? I don't even
Google
remember.
Plus.
Oh yeah, Google Plus. Wow, I couldn't even remember it.
It was bad.
But another company has a slightly different take on the streaming service, and it's a low price.
Nvidia officially launches cloud gaming service GeForce Now for $5 per month. So you sign up for this, it connects up to your Steam and EA and some other stuff. You get a computing device in the cloud. You can play your games in a data center that's near you, low latency, and it works. And the same technology you can stream from your home computer. So if your home computer has a good enough thing, and that's free, it's completely free. So you can play on your phone or your laptop or whatever, even this crappy Surface that's an M3 that doesn't even have any video to speak of, you can still play Skyrim at 30 FPS at 720p.
Now, they do it a little bit different than Google, because remember Google promised it was like 4K for everybody, and then people started looking at it and they're like, bro, this ain't 4K. Nvidia says, we're not even going to sell you the service unless you're close enough to one of our data centers that we've got right now. We might add more in the future, but if you're not close to one, forget it.
Yeah.
And you can try it for free, although the machine that they're going to give you at the data center is going to be one of the garbage machines. Just to see if your connection is good, then you give them the $5, you move up to the good machine.
Yeah.
It's all RTX. You can ray trace in the cloud.
I feel like that process has had a lot more thought put into it than Google's process for signing people up, which is really kind of depressing.
They may have been paying attention to that dumpster fire and calling the fire department preemptively.
If Crystal starts streaming Overwatch on her phone, we'll have to have an intervention.
That's not going to happen.
I still don't understand how people do FPS.
Yeah,
on
so
the phone.
the aiming would be so terrible.
Yeah,
And now I don't even play super aim intensive characters for the most part.
To be honest, I'm officially too old to grasp that version. I would be like one of my parents trying to use the console controls, where like they can't even do the dual stick look and walk.
I mean, like I understand it's just aiming is just clunky. I feel like it's better with a mouse. I don't even like just using a controller at all.
I've done a lot with Pixel Dungeon.
Yeah, but that's
Well,
turn-based.
yeah, that's not really the same. Also, the ad on this next article is sort of weirdly specific.
Oh yeah, they're definitely looking at our IP address.
Yeah.
Amazon's Ring. Well, they've had a bad 2020, haven't they? Just been disaster after disaster after disaster, and you got to wonder, what are they going to do about it? Well, they've taken just maybe a half step back, maybe a quarter step, but they've done something.
Amazon's Ring will now allow users to opt out of all video surveillance requests. Asterisk. A warrant is not a request. Asterisk.
Gotta get the picture of the ring there.
So it turns out that they can still get a warrant.
Don't.
Well, it
get a
used to
ring.
be you could always opt out, but the checkbox to opt out didn't appear until you'd already gotten the police request for the first time. Now you can preemptively say, "Don't bother me." That's basically, that little checkbox should be labeled "Come back with a warrant," like those.
Which they will do.
Yeah.
It's super easily now.
Like the welcome mats.
Yeah.
You can get the.
It's just like, oh, you just call the judge, and the judge is like, yeah, you got my stamp, right? Yeah, just stamp it. It's fine.
So it shows that they understand that it's hurting their product, that people recognize that it's a spy tool for the cops, but
It took a long time, though.
they're not willing to give
did.
up that sweet cop money, those federal dollars.
Took a long time. The length of time really does make me weep for the future of humanity.
It's a huge missed opportunity if they don't cast Jeff Bezos as Sauron in the new Lord of the Rings
I
series.
think he's got a little bit on his plate. He might
No,
not be able to free up
he
his-
needs to. He is Sauron. He is Anatar.
Well, I caught up on Picard last night. Did you watch the 3rd episode yet?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's limping along. It's not blowing my mind.
Yeah.
But it's better. I gotta say, it's better than I expected. I expected it to be really
The
bad.
1,000-yard stare from Wendell's.
It's amazingly better than Discovery. Shockingly better than Discovery.
Oh, agree or disagree in the comments. But it looks like CBS is once again building another fence, and this is a little bit of a clickbait headline, but it does seem like they're like, oh, look, we've got Star Trek. That's the one thing that we can hang our hat on. That's what we have that no one else has. Let's do everything we can with that.
ViacomCBS plan would unify all of Star Trek and more into one new streaming service. CBS's service is just on the launch pad with the other Viacom content added. So basically they want to pull, Star Trek into all this one thing and see how much people are willing to pay for it, which is probably too much. Like, this company should not deserve to exist.
You know what's weird is the version that I saw at a friend's house always starts with the Amazon Prime logo. And the rest of the world, that's on Amazon Prime.
Yep.
It's only America where they gate us in this stupid CBS All Access thing.
It's because they realize that the rest of the world market is like, no, we're not doing this.
No thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. But that would be now. Do they own all the movies?
Yeah.
Wow. So I think some people would sign up for that just because it's going to be everything in the history of Star Trek.
I don't know if owned, but they definitely have a license to use them, so they probably could stream them if they want to. So the most surprising thing so far about Picard is that they actually do seem like they've tried to work in every little thing they possibly can from old episodes and old series. There's like little Easter eggs everywhere, but it still feels kind of like bolted on.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, remember when this happened?
Yeah.
It's a little
Like,
bit like that.
It's like Family Guy jokes.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about it, and I think the music is really good, like the music direction. And you gotta admit, Wendell, did you get a little bit of emotion at the end of that 3rd episode when he says engage and the music kicks in?
Yeah.
Now, my favorite thing about it, though, if you go back, and you might have noticed this, but before that, whenever Picard would do something a little bit like old Picard, like there would be that echo. It's like, oh, he's coming back. Those horns, those Next Generation horns, just really faint in the background. That's my favorite thing about it, when those moments happen.
Yeah. I liked when he was in the Admiral's office and he's like, we're going to do this thing. And she's just like, nope, you're geriatric. We're not doing this.
But she's also looks like the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah.
They really cast a lot of old people. But I guess that's part of the story. It's like everybody's old.
Probably kind of nice if you're working in Hollywood and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
finally jobs. Too bad it's a short-term gig, but
Yeah, till he dies. Being
Yeah.
the short term. I don't know. I think. Do we know numbers? How popular is it?
I don't know.
I mean, it's being hamstrung by that service.
I don't know. No idea on what the numbers are.
Well, the coronavirus, it's still out there. It's still a specter over all of our lives, but I think we're getting a little bit saturated with news about it.
Can't mention it too much. We'll be demonetized.
Because it's just everywhere, and what are you going to do? You just go on with your life. But if you're going to a big tech show, you do have to consider it.
No handshakes at meet and greet. Tech shows adapt to virus.
Wendell, how excited are you about that?
That sounds amazing to me.
Oh,
Yeah.
handshakes are so barbaric.
They are. It's like, please don't make me touch your hand.
Just show me the technology.
Just, we can just do like a little wave and hi, nice to meet you.
I wouldn't mind if we did like a stupid little dance instead. Just anything. But a lot of tech companies are actually pulling out of these shows because they're like, you know what? If I send an employee there and they get sick and die, that is going to be a PR nightmare that I cannot recover from. So let's just not do it. And I think this is kind of a damage control.
Is Computex still on at this point?
Yeah, Computex.
Honestly, that's not till May, but
June.
well, end of May, early June usually.
No, it's
Is it in June proper?
I think so.
I feel like it's usually like right at the end of May. Maybe I'm misremembering that.
If China is still shut down in May or June, we're doomed.
Yeah.
The economy is done. Buy some topsoil and some seeds.
Get started now. Turn that extra bedroom
Actually,
into
June is probably too late in America, right? Because that's like you should have already planted.
Yeah, you
well
should usually
before.
start planting like end of April, early May.
Well, we talked about Huawei and their woes with Google. Not only are they building their own operating system, but what do you do about the Google Play Store if you're locked out of heaven there? And they have a plan.
Google's mobile giants are going to take on Google Play Store, according to sources. So these, Xiaomi, Huawei, Oppo, and Vivo are joining forces to create a platform for developers outside of China. I kind of laughed at this, and then the article points out that these companies have 40% of the market. They might be able to pull this off, and Android is flexible enough that they could kind of surreptitiously use Android but put their own app store on top of it, and that could theoretically work.
Mm-hmm. You can sideload those secure app stores, although they don't get updated very much. And if Huawei does their own OS,
yeah, then it'll just drop right in. I think that's probably what if I were Huawei, I would just rip off Android and make an Android binary compatible thing.
Oh, they're ripping. They're ripping as fast as they can.
Especially with the whole Google Oracle thing, and it's like, hey, they said the API was open. We just
YouTube traditionally does not, Google traditionally does not give numbers on what YouTube made. They kind of lump everything together into one line item. And everybody's like, well, what about the advertising arm? And what about the Google arm? And they're like, nope. Google made this money. We're all the same. Until now.
YouTube reveals revenue for first time, $15.1 billion in 2019. Just $4.75 billion in the last quarter alone. And there are things in this report to suggest that this is about a doubling of what it was a year, 18 months ago.
They also reported the ad numbers, which were very impressive. I can't remember what they were. But doing well is YouTube.
You would think that, if they're getting twice as much ad revenue over the last year, that YouTube channels would be getting twice as much revenue.
No.
Well, I think
per view.
They're
not.
The sad reality that tells us is that the adpocalypse worked.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the new normal.
It's very sad.
There's no alternative. We're all stuck on.
We're on float plane.
We're on float plane.
There's alternatives.
But there are very few alternatives. Let's say that.
You're just not going to get any new people from those.
Yeah.
Well, the secret to using library would be to just upload 1080p content. We made the mistake of trying to upload 4K content. That did not work.
You're talking about the blockchain one?
Yeah.
Is that what that's called?
I don't remember.
We tried DTube briefly.
I think it's like a 1 gig limit.
Oh yeah, we tried that one too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was not great.
No.
Well, moving on to the security section. Now, here's an article that a lot of you are going to be like, well, that's not news. And yeah, it's not news to us because we have had to work in this filth, this medical waste. This is like our version of the coronavirus. But a lot of people might not know this. And you should know it because it is so prevalent. It's everywhere. And it's really good at figuring out who you are.
Almost every website you visit records exactly how you move your mouse. Services that replay your digital body language like it's a movie are extremely common and easy to install. Basically, it just, you move your mouse and it's like, oh, you moved your mouse, you moved your mouse, you moved your mouse, you moved your mouse, you moved your mouse. It records the
You hovered
coordinates.
over this for a second. Were you thinking about buying that? Let's advertise for it.
Yeah, you can actually get some good analytics out of that. So,
Krista, do you think your mouse movements are like especially spastic or?
Probably a little bit.
The scariest one I saw was an age estimator. And it was surprising, like in a focus group test, it was surprisingly accurate.
Did they put in full sentences on Google search?
We got to build the mouse mover that takes those profiles so you can emulate whatever you want. It's like while I'm sleeping, do the 45-year-old Karen mouse movements.
Yeah, like the older people actually do have a much measurably lower response time, and they'll zero in on a button and crap like that. So.
Zero in.
You could do. My mom drives me out of my mind because she can't. She always clicks in between the buttons, and it never works.
Oh, she must have been a Mac user.
And it's like, well, she's a nothing user. So this is her first foray into this, and I'm like, no, it's a left click, and then it's like she takes a moment and clicks right in the middle again. So she would be easy to track.
Oh man, think how fun that would be to watch on the Geriatric Gaming League.
Oh man, the Geriatric Gaming League. It was an idea that we should have embraced because it would have been incredible.
It's a thing now.
There was another report that I saw once, which was a correlation of how many clicks, like what were the demographics of people that clicked on stuff that was not clickable, and how many clicks that were not did not generate an event, but somebody clicked somewhere on the page. And with like the age demographic, like the older you were, like the more just random clicks there were on the page. And I don't know if they included that in the algorithm or they were thinking about it, but it was like, that's not a button, that's not a link, that's not anything you can click on, that's a picture. Why are you clicking on that?
But yeah, so script blocking would be the way around that. I think most of the better ad blockers have those blacklisted. Just keep in mind,
It is a thing.
you're being tracked.
Although, because web browsers are blocking those domains, because all of those companies want you to use those services as cloud services, now the insidious thing is to set up like analytics.companyname.com, which actually just points to the company, because Firefox and Safari will allow scripts to run on the same domain as the website you're looking at, where it doesn't allow like DoubleClick, which is, Google AdWords. And so now companies like Adobe and Google and stuff are offering their products on your domain name, which is a first, but it's because of the horrible insidiousness of what they're doing.
Well, Krista, you tested out a bunch of tablets.
I did.
And you were a bit of a tablet snob, and you had to go for the super expensive Apple.
Oh, the Apple one was not the most expensive one. Wacom way more expensive.
Oh, really? But
way more.
Didn't they have a model that was cheaper?
It was, but it didn't even have a screen on it.
Right, yeah.
So.
Well, perhaps they are feeling the bite of lost sales to the iPad because they found a new way to make money, and it's terrible.
Wacom says it's not spying on its customers, and users can opt out of data collection.
What's it doing? Reporting the name and executable name of every single program that you use on your entire computer.
Because you might be using a tablet with Internet Explorer or your Steam games.
Or Doki Doki Literature Club, or whatever it is that you might happen to be running.
The real way to play that, the best experience is with a tablet.
Well, that way you can really learn the characters' faces, and then when you go to draw fan art later, you've already got that memorized.
So yeah, someone figured this out, and they were like, well, we do that, but you can opt out, because they wanted to say we don't do that, but they do. And I imagine
thought they tried to opt out and they couldn't. Like they opted out and it said they opted out, but it was still reporting.
Probably true. Yeah.
It'd be hilarious if it knew what you were drawing, and then the little clippy would come up and be like, "It looks like you're drawing anime porn. You want me to help you with that?"
Do you want me to help you market this furry porn? I know some buyers.
We're just gathering this data so we can make our new clippy tool. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's capturing the strokes in some way. I mean, it probably can't put together a holistic picture of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But it can sort of figure out what kind of user you are based on what you're doing. That's probably some really interesting AI work going into that for just the darkest reason. Yeah.
It's probably maybe we could figure out something about the way people draw, or we can use it to sell stuff to them.
No, there's no Wacom does not need that data, except to monetize it.
Oh, they need it.
They just want it.
They're desperate for it,
apparently.
So ransomware, that's a big deal, and it can ruin your day, especially if you're a big business or a municipality. But up until now, it's basically just been encryption. Ransomware just encrypts your stuff and makes you pay for a key. But they've decided to go a different direction with it, a much darker one.
New ransomware doesn't just encrypt data, it also meddles with critical infrastructure. So Ekans, I don't know how to pronounce it,
Ekans is a Pokemon. Do you not see what that is?
No.
That's snake spelled backwards.
Oh.
Wow, you remembered that Pokemon and I didn't.
Wow.
Ooh. You got served.
That's an original 150 as well.
You know why I know that? Because they took him out of the latest one, and the weebs lost their mind.
Why did they take him out?
I don't know.
Engagement challenge.
I'm not really a weeb, but like, why would they remove a Pokemon that totally destroys the canon? How will Ash catch them all?
I think you're asking the same questions that the weebs asked when they did that.
Yeah. How can he catch them all if they just remove them randomly?
So basically what this is imagine that you're, the front desk operator at a large building that has like 12 elevators. There's computers that control the motion of the elevators, like how busy and how to, cluster the elevators at different groups of floors to make sure that everybody's served efficiently. And that how the algorithm does that will change through the day. But the elevators will work even if the computer systems are down, because there's a separate computer system that's actually part of the elevator. But that computer system connects to the computer system at like the front desk, so the front desk can see like where the elevators are, if there's anything weird going on, if anybody's pressed the call alarm, stuff like that. So this malware looks specifically for those types of industrial control systems, not just elevator control, manufacturing, other industries, and tries to take control of those devices as well. So ransomware could shut down your building's elevators, for example.
This version just tries to kill them, which is a very basic and not as threatening attack. But if we think back to Stuxnet and some of the Iranian stuff that we've seen, it didn't try to kill them. It tried to suppress the error signals and cause them to melt down.
Yes.
So,
and it was successful at that.
It could be very, very bad if you run some sort of system that can cause external damage.
Yeah.
And ransomware in other ways also is evolving, much like the coronavirus. And this one takes advantage of a very, very bad decision by Gigabyte to hide their failures.
Ransomware installs Gigabyte driver to kill antivirus products. Robinhood Ransomware deploys a novel technique to make sure it can encrypt your files without being interrupted. So just like that other thing, which will demonetize us if we mention it, that co-opted some genes from HIV, this ransom...
You're going to get so many comments like, that was fake.
Yeah, well, there was kind of some doubts about it. Even
well,
when
I didn't say if it was naturally done or if it was naturally...
No, I think they've cast doubt on the entire...
The whole
Yeah.
paper, I think, yeah.
Okay, well, whatever. But it uses a legit driver from Gigabyte. It's not like the things were stolen. It's just the driver from Gigabyte was not written in a very secure way and allows arbitrary code to be executed as permissions above administrator on Windows machines. So they install the driver and then use the driver to install some malware to kill antivirus, and then they can deploy the ransomware payload.
Now you're asking yourself and others at this point, wait a minute, why didn't Gigabyte patch that? Why isn't there a better version? Why wouldn't they just disallow that version? Well, because Gigabyte insisted that there was nothing wrong. They said, no, that product is fine. We're not selling it anymore. So,
but it can be installed on anything, literally anything.
And VeriSign still considers it an okay driver.
Oops.
Maybe not after this week.
I bet Gigabyte ends up hiring some security professionals after this.
Maybe they should get those that one group that hacked the Twitter.
Oh no, I think like they could handle this kind of stuff with like 2 full-time employees. It'd be fine.
But then they have to insure those people and like offer them benefits.
Nah, we'll hire them in China.
Oh,
Yeah,
perfect.
Although
Probably Taiwan.
they can't get back to work till middle of
Yeah.
February. They work from home. Air gapping. Air gapping your machine means you don't connect it to a network because it is super, super secure. You must protect the data on that machine. And if you plug in a network, it can't be protected. But academics love to try and get information out of those computers. They've used router lights. They've used the clicking of the hard drive. They've used the LEDs for the hard drive. They've used just anything you can think of that a computer does.
Scroll lock on the keyboard.
They've used it to try to exfiltrate data. And now we have a new one that is even slower and even more esoteric than all the ones before.
Academics are stealing data from air-gap systems using screen brightness variations. Israeli researchers use quick flickers and LCD screen brightness to encode and exfiltrate data. So I guess
Wow.
whenever Snowden is kidnapped or whatever, and he has a video where he's talking about how he's not been kidnapped, he will have like the screen behind him blinking the SOS, like what was it? Was it Vietnam where that happened, where people were blinking?
Like the time.
He blinks out torture.
Yeah.
10 bits per second. So, not going to be streaming video over this. Yeah, I think there are better ways. But it's fun to play that game, isn't it? It's fun to come up with new ways to attack those systems. The Hue smart lights. Did you get some of those for Christmas? Maybe gave some. Maybe your nephew or your, younger siblings, and you said, "Oh, look at these cool lights," and they're like, "Oh, yay!" Well, you've destroyed them. It's all your fault.
Security experts warn of vulnerability in Philips Hue smart lights. The security vulnerability is so bad that remote attackers up to 100 meters away could join the network that the control hub is connected to, even without authentication.
But look at the mood in this room.
You're not wrong though. Like that room looks incredible.
Imagine the bong hits that could go down in this room. So the software that connects your Hue to the rest of your network is the problem here, and they've patched it. But how many people really update that?
Nobody. Ever.
Yeah. It's like, oh, the light thing wants an update. I don't have time for this.
Speaking of which, maybe I should do that.
We take our own advice here. Well, we talk a lot about data breaches, and it's like you're going to get breached, right? Everybody should know that at this point. You should just take it.
It's going to happen.
Try to do something about it. And so a lot of companies say, "Oh, that's okay. We've anonymized the data. It's not a big deal. It's anonymized." And does that work? It seems like it doesn't. And now we have from Motherboard, we see that every leak that comes out is basically another table join for your data. There is no anonymizing.
Researchers find, quote unquote, anonymized data is even less anonymous than we thought. Corporations love to pretend that they're anonymization techniques, but protect consumers. But studies show that that's not really true. Yeah, again, this is, if you watch the Level 1 news program, this is something we've said since the beginning. That the aforementioned mouse tracking pattern, if you have enough of that data, it's really easy to identify an individual. So if you have one piece of data that identifies an individual, you can de-anonymize huge other sets of data.
And keep in mind that these data sets don't go away. They're just being collected and collated and put together.
Or imagine like the Tesla data set, like that. It's like no personally identifiable information leaked in that except the GPS coordinates of your car every day for the last 5 years.
And
could you be identified from that?
Your accelerating and braking profile.
Yeah. You can even tell. It's like, oh, we had a different driver because they weighed something different. That's actually a thing in the software, if I remember correctly, because Tesla would adjust some very minor things about the thing based on the weight of the driver. I
see that we have a buffet receipt on the same day that this weight went up 3 pounds at the same time. And they drove home very quickly to take a huge dump. Are these phones raining from the cloud?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was also trying to determine what that image was.
I'm not real sure what this is supposed to communicate to me.
Somebody got this clip art made on like Fiverr.com for $5. They're like,
Fiverr's terrible.
We want thing for $5. And it's like, all right, this is what you get.
I like to think that these are like giant electric caviar. And they're shooting these phones down at the earth to destroy it.
It's just like the dreams I've had.
And finally, we talked about people manipulating Waze. Waze is the camera, right? Wise and Waze. Come on, guys, get new names. But because it is user reported, it's crowdsourced. Like, here's a cop, here's a traffic jam. How far would you have to go to manipulate that? And one man has an answer.
This quote-unquote hack creates fake Google Maps traffic jams with 99 cell phones. So a German artist illustrated how it is possible to create a virtual traffic jam in Google Maps by walking around the streets of Berlin with 99 cell phones. So he's got
Imagine if you're like a tourist just coming through and it's like, okay, we need to get to the restaurant by this time. And it's like, oh, there's a major traffic jam over here. We need to go around.
I mean, it's incredible because look, there's empty streets because Google is like, no, don't go that way. And so everybody's like, okay, I won't go that way. But it's just an empty street.
I imagine that's illegal, but
Is it?
And
How?
it's
Yeah.
got to be expensive. But how cool would it be to just have a mobile traffic jam in your car with you?
That's incredible.
I guess it wouldn't cause people in front of you to get out of your way,
Yeah.
but it would ensure that there was no traffic behind you.
It's weird to me that like that worked so well. Because I would think if you're like a local in the area, like you would know the streets and you would probably not have Google Maps up to get the notification that there's traffic.
Oh, there's a few cars in those pictures.
Yeah. I mean, if you cut it by 20%,
It would
it'll
still
be
be,
a
yeah.
lot better experience.
VIPs do that. It's like Jeff Bezos is driving around with a trunk full of phones at all times just because he likes how it opens the roads up.
I can see that. Or
Wouldn't
it's like,
surprise me.
oh, let's not go to that restaurant. Look how many people are there. Yeah, and he's just dining alone.
On his mega yacht.
All right, what do we got for Friday?
Friday is a big chunk of nonsense.
There was a
And
lot of
I was
nonsense this
heavy-handed with the animal stories, and I won't apologize for it.
It's fine.
And robots.
It's more than fine, Wendell.
Chris to say bye.
Bye.